Most gardeners are overpaying for worm castings and underbuilding their soil. Let's start there. Worm castings are treated like the gold standard of organic gardening. People sprinkle a handful into a transplant hole and expect miracles. I've used plenty of castings over the years, in raised beds, market-style rows, and even in controlled media blends. And here's the truth, they're good, but they're not magic. And in many cases, properly made hummus compost delivers broader biological impact at a fraction of the cost. If you're serious about soil performance and not just following gardening trends, you need to understand why fermented hummus compost is quietly replacing worm castings for growers who care about scale and results. Subscribe now if you want practical soil methods, not hype. Worm castings are powerful, but they're limited. Worm castings excel at microbial density and plant-available nutrients in small doses. They improve seedling vigor and root initiation, especially in sterile or low biology media, but they are expensive to produce at volume and their nutrient contribution is often overstated. In one side-by-side bed trial, I amended one 3-square-meter raised bed with 4 kilograms of quality worm castings before planting tomatoes. In another identical bed, I incorporated 3 kilograms of fermented hummus compost 2 weeks before transplanting. By mid-season, plant height and stem thickness were nearly identical, but the hummus compost bed showed stronger soil aggregation and better moisture retention. The castings fed plants, the hummus compost fed the entire soil system. Hummus compost works because it accelerates biology before it hits the bed. What I call hummus compost isn't traditional 6-month compost. It's a controlled fermentation of plant material that partially breaks down organic matter and saturates it with active microbes before soil integration. Standard composting relies heavily on aerobic breakdown over time. Fermentation uses anaerobic and facultative microbes to pre-digest material quickly, producing organic acids, enzymes, and microbial metabolites that act as a biological jump-start when incorporated into soil. The difference shows up in soil respiration rates. In tests, I ran with simple carbon dioxide measurement jars. Beds amended with hummus compost showed noticeably higher microbial activity within the first month compared to beds amended with standard compost or light worm casting applications. Let's talk about how to actually make it properly. The base material matters. I use fresh green plant matter, vegetable scraps, green weeds before they set seed, chopped leaves and soft stems. For every 10 kilograms of green material, I mix in about 2 kilograms of dry carbon material such as shredded cardboard or dry leaves to prevent excessive moisture. Then I add roughly 500 grams of mature compost as a microbial inoculant. That introduces a diverse population immediately. To fuel fermentation, I dissolve about 200 milliliters of molasses into 5 liters of water and mix it evenly through the pile. Everything is chopped small and mixed thoroughly. Then it's packed tightly into a sealed container or heavy-duty bag to limit oxygen exposure. Air pockets are pressed out. The goal is controlled fermentation, not open-air rot. In warm conditions around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, fermentation takes about 10 to 14 days. Cooler weather can stretch that to 3 weeks. The finished material should smell mildly sour, like fermented vegetables, not foul or putrid. If it smells rotten, moisture or oxygen balance was off. Now the key step most people skip is the buffering period. Fresh fermented compost should never go directly around plant roots, you know. It's biologically intense and, well, slightly acidic. I always incorporate it into soil at least 10 to 14 days before planting. In a standard 4 by 8 foot raised bed, I apply about 2 to 3 kilograms evenly across the surface and mix it into the top 10 centimeters of soil. Then I water thoroughly and allow aerobic microbes to rebalance the system before transplanting. That transition is where the soil wakes up. Aerobic organisms consume fermentation byproducts, stabilize pH, and begin converting organic acids into plant-available nutrients. In real growing conditions, here's what changes. In leafy greens, like lettuce and spinach, germination tends to be more uniform in beds amended with humus compost. Seedlings establish faster and show deeper color within 3 weeks. In fruiting crops like tomatoes and peppers, I notice stronger early root development and thicker stems. Not explosive top growth, steady structural strength. By mid-season, fruit set is consistent and leaf health remains stable without excessive supplemental feeding. Compared to worm castings, which I typically apply at about 200 grams per transplant whole, humus compost works at the bed level. It changes the biological baseline rather than acting as a localized stimulant. So, cost and scalability matter more than people admit. Honestly, high-quality worm castings can be expensive, especially if you're amending multiple beds. Producing your own at scale, well, that requires space, time, and a steady feedstock. Humus compost, on the other hand, uses materials most gardeners already have, kitchen scraps, weeds, leaves, and converts them into a concentrated biological amendment in weeks instead of months. For growers managing larger garden spaces, that efficiency, it really does matter. Now, that doesn't mean worm castings are useless. I still use them strategically in seed starting mixes at about 10% by volume. But for broad soil improvement across raised beds, humus compost delivers more impact per kilogram. Hydroponic growers, you need to adapt the concept carefully. You simply cannot dump fermented compost into a hydroponic reservoir that would destabilize everything. But in hybrid systems like cocoa coir beds fed with biologically active nutrient solutions, filtered and stabilized extracts from humus compost can enhance microbial diversity. In one trial growing peppers in cocoa, I applied a heavily filtered, aerated extract at roughly 100 milliliters per 20-liter reservoir after stabilizing pH. Root development improved, and there were no issues with clogging or nutrient imbalance. The key was filtration and restraint. The principle holds. Controlled biology beats sterile feeding when managed correctly. There are trade-offs, and ignoring them causes problems. Over-application of fermented compost can temporarily lower soil pH and create excess microbial oxygen demand. That's why moderation matters. I rarely exceed 3 kilograms per square meter per cycle. Poorly controlled fermentation can produce phytotoxic compounds. If your material smells strongly rotten or shows black slime, it wasn't managed properly. Start over. Precision matters. But when done correctly, humus compost builds soil structure, increases microbial diversity, and enhances nutrient cycling more broadly than small doses of worm castings. The reason growers are shifting isn't hype, it's performance. After 2 consecutive seasons incorporating humus compost into the same beds, organic matter stabilized at higher levels, soil aggregation improved, and irrigation needs decreased slightly due to better moisture retention. That's system-level improvement, not just plant-level feeding. If your goal is long-term soil resilience rather than quick visual boosts, fermented humus compost deserves serious attention. If you care about building soil that improves year after year, this is worth learning. Worm castings still have their place, especially in propagation and transplant support. But if you want to upgrade the entire biological engine of your garden, humus compost is a powerful, scalable alternative. Use it deliberately. Buffer it before planting. Apply it at realistic rates. Observe your soil response. If this breakdown helped you rethink how you're building fertility, subscribe to the channel and share this video with another grower who's ready to move beyond expensive inputs and into smarter soil management. The better we understand biology, the better food we grow. And that's what this channel is about.